Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Writers Hour, a brand new social interest group that is going to be for writers who want to help develop their craft. I'm Lisa Hickey. I'm the publisher of the Good Men Project, and I'd like to welcome you all to this call. So since this is the very first one that we're having, I want to spend a little bit of time telling you what we're doing here, how we're going to format these, how we're going to set them up, what the goals are, and what we hope to accomplish with them. So the calls are designed to be in three sections. So one is which will take a writing tip, and it might be, it'll often be about writing, but sometimes it'll be about the editing process. Sometimes it'll be about themes and topics. Sometimes it'll go off a little and be more on promotional techniques, how to get your writing out there, how to monetize your writing, how to learn about SEO. So a lot of different things are going to be covered in this writing tip section of the calls. And we'd also love to know what it is you all would like. So if you're on these calls and you want to give suggestions for what is it you would really like to learn about for writing, just let us know. So that's part one, and that'll be about 20 minutes. And then the second 20 minutes is going to be a question and answer. So we get our executive editor team at the Good Men Project. We have 3 executive editors, and they get a lot of questions from writers. And we really want to work with developing writers, helping them grow, answering their questions. But we thought it would be much more efficient if we could answer all questions on this call and really help people in a group learn what it is they want to know. So the question and answer piece will be designed not just for question and answers about the tip of the day, but any questions you have, whether it's about writing for the Good Men Project specifically, whether it's about writing in general, whether it's, you have 20 minutes to pick our brains. The other thing I'll say is I'll try to come to most of these, but they're also going to be run by varying executive editors from the Good Men Project. So you will get to know the other executive editors and get tips from them, so it won't be just me all the time, although I love these. So I'll probably come to most of them. And then the third 20 minutes, which we're also really excited about, is where we're going to brainstorm topics that people can write about. So one of the things that the Good Men Project does really well is that when there's, say, a topic in the news or when there's a topic that a lot of people are talking about, we approach that topic from a variety of different viewpoints. We don't just put our little editorial heads together and say, this is the answer, this is what's going to be our point of view. No, we say, hey, can we get a bunch of people to write about this? So we'll have like a dozen people writing about the same thing, but from varying points of view. And I don't mean two sides to the issue, because we're really clear that, some issues don't really have two sides. We're not going to say, oh, we want a climate change denier when we're talking about the environment. No, not at all. What we want is, let's use the environment as an example. If we're talking about the environment, we want a point of view that's like, how do you teach your kids about the environment? What's the top 10 list of things that are going to be effective? Here's what's happening in the news. How to lobby your people in government? What's going on around the world? How do you talk to your spouse about the fact that one of you is very environmentally, but one really cares about the environment and one doesn't? What if that causes a rift in your marriage? So taking one topic, and usually they won't be as broad as that, but taking one topic and really getting points of view that come at the problem from a lot of different angles. So that's what we're hoping to do in the last 20 minutes of the call. So I am going to start out with the tip of the day. And this is today's tip is actually, I'm going to go deep into this idea of if you have a piece and you have a first draft and you're self-editing it, what do you edit? So a lot of times people will say, well, editing is like pruning a tree and you're taking off the dead wood, you're taking off the stuff that really doesn't matter. And I totally agree with that, but how do you even think about what matters and what doesn't? Like, are there some easy techniques where you can just flag what it is you should edit out of your post to make it more effective and make that writing really as clean and as crisp and as clear as you want it? So what I'm going to talk about first is this idea of getting rid of weasel words. And weasel words come in a couple of different varieties. So there's a lot of weasel words, and often people will have some that they use over and over again. We were actually talking about this on a sex, love, and relationships call yesterday where we were talking about conversational skills. And we were talking about how some people, when they're in a conversation with other people, they'll always start their sentence with the word so. And I'm like, I'm guilty as charged. Like, I always use the word so. And I use it in a lot of my writing also. So I'm always looking for that word so. And so is one of those weasel words. It's fine if you make a conscious choice that you really need it in that particular sentence. But if you're just start every sentence because you don't know any other way to make that transition, then you should be aware of it and look at cutting it out. So other of that type of weasel words where they're just like repetitive as words that don't add meaning are words like just and that and suddenly and very and every and some and most and but. Although, however, and again, sometimes you really need those, but like for me, that is a big one. Like I can go through, in any given first draft, I can go through and cut out probably 10 of the words that are in my writing in any given first draft. And that already makes the writing better as soon as I get rid of that word. So getting rid of weasel words weasel words of that sort is a good first step to getting your writing better. However, using a weasel word as a transition, right there. There's also different types of weasel words that undermine the meaning of your post. So not only do they just get in the way, so words like just or that or very don't really harm the idea of your writing. They just kind of get in the way and they're useless. They're not needed. But there are some that actually can undermine your work. So one example of that is if you're using an ambiguous authority. So if you say something like many people say, or it is often claimed, or a growing body of evidence, or critics point out, or economists say, or technologists will tell you that, you're really undermining your work because you're saying that you know these authorities are saying these things, but you're not giving any proof. So if you use those words and you're doing it in order to link to a specific piece of research, that's one thing. But a lot of writers will say that because that's what they've heard, and they don't really want to bring in some specific research into it. They just want to give a generalized view of what they think is going on in the world. And that's using an ambiguous authority can actually undermine your work. A second related one is something called a glittering generality. And that's where we use emotional language in order to avoid saying something informative or concrete. So, for instance, to get back to the environment, if a corporation says, we really care about the environment, they're trying to get that emotional hook to you, we care. But if they're not backing that up with actual actions, if they're not backing it up with telling how they are actually creating change that's going to make the environment a better place, then they don't really care about the environment, right? It's not enough to just have a feeling about something. Like, having a feeling about something can sound awfully close to like you're putting a stake in the ground and actually doing something, but it's not. And so glittering generalities is something you should be aware of. Another example might be something like, we would absolutely love to work with you. Like not just, we'd be happy to have a professional relationship, but we'd love to work with you. So you're making an emotional appeal without backing it up. A third type of weasel word, which can also undermine your work and the credibility of your work, is something called a non-denial denial. So what that means is you're trying to convey a sense of denial without really denying anything. So, take an example of like a bicycle helmet company that has failed a safety standard test. They might say, we take safety seriously, or safety is at the heart of everything we do. But they're not actually saying their helmets are safe to use. And the other way that that's actually done, so all of these are somewhat related, like the generalities, the ambiguous authorities, the non-denial denials, that they're all interrelated, but they each have their own little thing that you should watch out for. And the other is using cliches, again, in order to sound authoritative, to sound like you're doing something, but you're actually not. So if someone, if you're talking about, you're trying to give some information to a team about, the next steps in your strategy, and you say something like, we need to think outside the box to find a really robust solution that is a win-win. You're just throwing cliches out there in order to make it seem as if you have ideas or strategy. So in each case of those weasel words, you're taking things that where you should be going to the specific, and we've talked about this on some of our other writing classes that we have. You're being as specific as possible is always better than being as general as possible. But in many times, these like weasel words are being used to actually try and manipulate people. So realizing that and getting rid of those and looking for those and saying, did I just do this? Oh, that's manipulative. I better not do that. Or that undermines me as an authority. I better back what I'm saying up. Those are really important tips. And the third thing that we're going to go through with editing, so we talked about weasel words that are just not harmful, but just get in the way, that can be pruned out, words like just and that and suddenly and very. We talked about weasel words that actually can undermine your writing by making it seem like you have authority when you don't, or making it seem like you're going to take action, or seeming like you're denying something when you're really not. So those weasel words that really undermine your credibility. And this last tip on sort of how to self-edit and how to take things out of your posts to make the writing better is improving your writing through something called filtering. This example came from a YouTube a person on YouTube called Shaylin Writes, who has a whole bunch of writing videos, and I've kind of become obsessed with them lately. I've listened to every one of them while I'm biking home from work each night. But this idea of filtering, I had sort of known it, but I hadn't had a word to describe it. And so it had been one of those things that I knew, but in the abstract. And so she ended up making it very concrete and specific, which, again, I always love. I love the specificity. So the filtering is a form of telling. So, we've heard the old adage, show, don't tell. That's repeated almost to the point of being a cliche, show, don't tell. But a filter is a form of telling, and it's taking a step back from the story or the post or whatever you're telling in order to put your point of view in as the narrator or the main character or the author, instead of letting the audience just experience it themselves firsthand. So when you filter, you look for these subject-verb constructions that relate to you as the person telling it, and you cut those out. And so let me give you a specific example again. And again, this example comes from this YouTube writing tips star called Shaylin Writes. This is the example she gives. And the writing is really bad in order to make a point. And it doesn't get to great writing, but it gets much better after this filtering process is applied. So here's the before. Lily saw a blue pickup truck rumble down the road. She smelled the acrid exhaust. She heard rain patter against the concrete and felt it beat up on her face. She realized the street was starting to flood. So there's a lot of filters in there, like Lily saw and she smelled and she heard and felt and she realized, right? So those are preventing the reader from experiencing what's going on because you're seeing every single sentence through Lily's eyes. So if you write that whole thing again without those filters, you get a blue pickup truck rumbled down the road. Lily's sinuses burned from the exhaust. Rain pattered against the concrete and beat it up on her face. The street was starting to flood. So it just gets much crisper, much clearer. You, as the reader, experience what's going on instead of everything being filtered through Lily's experience. You can do this in first person too, right? So in first person, you never need to say, I saw the tree, because if it's first person and you're telling us your experience, we know that you are describing the tree. It's implicit. You can just talk about what the tree looked like. So that's my tip of the day for today. And look at that, right perfect timing. You said that would be 20 minutes for the first part of the program, and there you go, exactly 20 minutes. So now we're going to open it up to the second part of the program, which is question and answer. And did I hear somebody else come in? Did someone else join us while I was talking?
Lisa Blacker.
Oh, Lisa Blacker, welcome. That's great.
Thanks.
We have Leslie Lagerstrom and another person who's been silent, so I don't know who that is, but it's just a small group today, as we kind of expected, because we're just starting this out. So I want to open it up to the question and answer. So as I was telling everyone on the call, these calls are designed to be 20 minutes on a tip 20 minutes on question and answer, and 20 minutes on group brainstorming to get writer's prompts that we can all write about. So now it's question and answer time.
I have one, or is it? I didn't catch the one who just came online. If she wants to go first, I don't care. All right. So I'm the mother of a transgender child. And so that is one of my stories was picked up, as I mentioned to you a couple of years ago, about Sam. He was assigned female at birth and now lives his life as a male. And I love your site. That's how I got introduced to it. It was when you guys picked up my piece. They found it on my blog. So I joined as a member, and I've been just reading through things. And it seems like your site and others say, to pitch an idea. And I'm not good at that. Like, I write my pieces, I write what I'm thinking about, our experiences, and then set out to try and find someone who would like it. Is that, and I guess I'm not doing it right, am I?
No, not at all. So let me explain how we work, because we don't actually take pitches. So we have a group of contributors from all over the world who contribute to the Good Men Project. So first of all, we don't pay for content. So if you're looking for a place that pays for content, then we are the wrong place for you. But if you're okay with not getting paid, we will really take any on-brand post that fits our editorial guidelines, and we don't need to be pitched first. And we'll also take reprints of anything that you have the rights to. So if you've run it someplace before, but you still own the reprint rights, we're happy to publish things and just get it a wider audience. And what we do that's different than other media companies, because we don't pay the writers, because we just cannot make that business model work. Like, we've been doing this for 8 years, and we've only been just breaking even for all of those 8 years, and the publishing model right now out there as a business model just is very difficult. So, but we want to give people other benefits. So that's why we have things like these calls. That's why we give information out. But the other thing that we do is, once you get a post on our site, and especially if it's really on brand, and certainly being the mother of a transgender child is as on brand as you could possibly be for us, we will promote those posts forever. So that people will see those, it might not become a hit immediately, but people will see those years from now, because we're always getting those back into circulation, back on social media, back on the front page, back in the email. So I think it's something we do that's different than most other media companies. So hopefully that answers your question. I think that I just want to say that was that helpful?
Yes, very much so. Yep. Okay. Yes, absolutely. And I'm just trying to figure out, I know my subject fits you guys, but off the top of your head, what would be of interest to you to read about? And I've been at this since he was 3 years old. He is now 22. So I've gone through the whole range of from childhood through we've been through it all, if you can imagine.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So what anything comes?
So there's actually quite a few that come to mind. I mean, I think that first of all, just that whole arc of the story, that you went from age 3 to 22. That's something that most parents of transgenders that I have don't have that experience. Like, a lot of times their child is anywhere from 8 to 18, and they're going through that sort of in-between phase when they're just finding out about this and they're kind of kicking themselves for not seeing the signs earlier, and then they're also just don't know what's ahead. So the fact that you've been through that whole experience, just that alone is really amazing. Like sort of, whether it's what you can expect at different stages or what you've learned along the way or, anything about that is great. The other thing is I'm sure you are feeling really anxious about what's going on in politics now with the news. I mean, it seems as if transgender people have been under attack for a long time, but there seemed to be like this ray of hope a few years ago when stories were coming out about them and it was getting more well known and people were more, I mean, it seemed to me like there was like 2 or 3 years when there was like this like, wow, things are going to get better now.
Totally. Yep. It's like a slingshot, and now we're way back, way back again.
So I know that's probably difficult to write about, but I mean, I do think that that's something we're going to be talking about that on a lot of our other calls that we're having, and it's just something we want to figure out together. So those are my sort of two things.
Sure, I appreciate that. All right. Do you find, I've got one more question if you don't mind. Do you find that, do your readers prefer pieces that are more storytelling in nature, the essays, or more like the top 10 ways to, or how to, or even just a straight point of view versus storytelling? What works best?
Yeah, see, it depends on what your goal is, because the top 10 lists and the sort of here's some advice tend to do the best and get the widest reach. But we're storytellers at our heart, so we find that the stories are the things that connect with people over time. But it's probably not going to be, we have top 10 lists that have like 5 million page views, literally.
Wow.
Yeah, I know, it's pretty amazing. But so, I don't want to discourage anyone from writing those because it's important. I mean, especially if you're writing about an issue that's important, it's important to get it out there to a lot of people. But we really love the story. We really love the individual stories. So it's kind of a toss-up.
Okay, good.
Lisa Blacker, were you going to jump in and say something?
Yes.
Or something?
Yes, I'd love to. I'm sorry, I don't know your name, the woman who just spoke.
Leslie,
I'm one of the executive editors on the team. I would love to talk with you about doing a column.
Oh, great. Would love to.
So, let's see. Can you write down my email address?
Yep, go ahead.
lisa.m.blacker@gmail.com.
At gmail.com. And is that just black and then ER?
Yes, exactly.
Okay. Got it.
Okay,
right.
Thanks.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
well, I was just going to say I love your site, and I mean, I just as a reader, as a connoisseur of good writing, and and loving to see different subjects covered, I just think you guys do a really good job.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been. It has not always been easy.
I bet.
As you might imagine. I mean, both from a business standpoint and just from an issue standpoint, because it's been really interesting. I've been the publisher for the whole 8 years, and I didn't understand how much men, and again, not all men, I'll clarify that, but there's groups of men who have such a vested interest in keeping things the way they have always been, because that's how they've gotten power. And so just understanding that dynamic that, hey, this has got to change, but we've got to figure out a way to change it on so many different levels and to get men to understand the reasons why it needs to change, even though it may mean that they don't have as much power as they once did.
Right.
Like that has been really hard too.
I'm sure. Well, yeah, especially like you were saying too in this current climate. It's just that's another area I feel like we've gone backwards.
Yeah.
So
really.
Yeah.
We really have. We're fighting as hard as we can, but it's hard. Well, the one good thing, and I'll say this too because the one good thing is that other media companies are starting to recognize us, the Good Men Project, as the leaders in this conversation. So, for example, with the Me Too movement, we are seen as one of the, like, whenever a media company wants to ask the question, how do men become allies in the Me Too movement? We're always on the list of people that they call. So whether it's the BBC we just did an interview with, USA Today, CNN, Washington Post. Yeah, no, they're like, okay, we've heard about the Good Men Project. We know that that you must have ideas on how men can become allies in the Me Too movement, but you're like the only one. So can you tell us?
I bet that's great. You guys should be proud. That's a huge accomplishment.
Yeah, I'm very proud about that. So we want to really ramp that up and do more in that area, but all areas. I mean, transgender rights are hugely important. And just as a little point, we had an executive editor who was transgender, and we have had, several writers, ongoing columnists, who have had that experience. So, but we always want more. It's like it doesn't, it's not like, oh, we've already written about that, there's nothing more to say. We truly believe that this has to come out over time another big thing we say is that art creates empathy. So, when you write something and it resonates with people, you're creating empathy and you're drawing attention to the issues in a way that's really going to stick with people because they have that empathy instead of just telling them, you're a bad person because you don't believe in transgender rights. So
totally agree. I worked in corporate America for 21 years and then left in 2011 because our company was sold to a private equity firm, the company I work for, not owned particularly personally. But anyway, and so instead of jumping back in to another job outside in the outside world, our family decided it was time to capture our story because there just wasn't anything out there about children who are trans. And so that's what our impetus was in me starting to write about this. And I went back to what you were saying, the different viewpoints are so important. And I think that when I get up, I do presentations around the country too, and when I get up, I always say, I want you guys to just remember this is our story, and there's all these different stories in the room, and I don't want you to leave here and think this is the only way a trans person and their family goes through life. So, just those multiple points of view, featuring them on your site is so important, I think.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's a really good point, and that gets back to what I was saying about like parents who are going through this with their own child. Like there's this phase they go through when they're frantic because they want the answer.
Right?
They want like, what do I do now? There's got to be someone who can tell me. And just knowing that there is no one answer. Like your child may take a very circuitous path to it, or or maybe not. Maybe it's going to be very quick and like it, but thinking that there's one way to go about it or one answer or one manual that's out there, I think does more harm sometimes than good.
Yep, I agree. So that is my background of what I have to offer you guys, or what I'm hoping to get more experience or more awareness out there. And that is why we all agreed as a family that we needed to share this because, opening hearts and minds, as you said, art creates empathy, and this is a subject that needs it.
Yep. No, it absolutely is. No, I'm thrilled that you came on today's call and we were able to talk with you personally about that.
I appreciate that.
Lisa Blacker, do you have anything else? Any thoughts? Anything else you want to add?
Specifically for Leslie, I've got a lot of ideas going on. But in general, no, not. I didn't hear the first 20 minutes or so because I got another call right before I got on, but so no.
Yeah, no, that was just the tip of the day. So I do think this format is going to work well, and I'll put, since it was a very small group, I'll put a recording of the call, at least the tip part up on our site so people can reference it. But I just did a tip on how to make your writing stronger by getting rid of what I call weasel words and doing something called filtering. So so it was good. So
it was good.
Thank you.
Yes.
Is there anybody else on the call? Can I get Leslie's information?
Yeah.
Just write to me, Leslie. I want to make sure we connect. That's all.
This is Thaddeus. I'm not. It's not a problem for you to trade information. I'm just listening.
Hey, Thaddeus.
Great. Welcome, Thaddeus. Great to have you.
I can't offer you guys much advice on writing.
Yep, I'm here.
What's your? I'm going to look you up here. What's your last name?
Lagerstrom. It's Lagerstrom. And my piece that you guys ran actually was 2015, so it's been 3 years. 13. It's been 15. Oh, it's been 5 years. Anyway, yeah. Can you hear me now?
We're good.
Okay, that's me.
Thank you.
You bet.
So I think we might just end early this week, and then hopefully this will grow. Usually, I think that once we start promoting it more, it'll grow to about 10 people.
Yep.
That's kind of my
I'm
goal.
going to pass this on to, I'm in a writing group of women, and I'm just going to pass this on to them as well. So, yeah.
Are we doing the thing where the first call is free, Lisa?
Yes.
Okay.
First call is always free, so anyone can just check it out.
Yep. And I think I'm already a premium member, so I can keep doing this, I guess, whenever I want, right? I think that's part of it, but I will let them know that that's part of it as well. First time is free.
Okay, great.
Cool. Well, I really appreciate your time and you sharing your expertise.
Thank you. No, this is fun. I'm excited to start this up, ramp this up. So thanks for joining. It was great to have you, Thaddeus. Thanks for coming on, even if you were quiet. And Lisa Blacker, of course, always great to have you. And
no worries. I just wanted to hear what you guys were talking about.
Thanks. And we'll talk to you soon. So take
Sounds
care,
good.
everyone.
Thanks. Yep,
Okay.
bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.